Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Lego Batman 3 Beyond Gotham. Turns out last recording actually wasn't at 1080p, or at least I don't think it was. So I wanted to start here just to show that it was now at 1080p. It'll still be upscaled because of my recording software. It'll just be a factor of if you zoomed in really close to the footage, you maybe would be able to tell that it was a little bit more pixely, um, which does kind of awkwardly connect to the confusion that exists around Telltale games in general, in that their menu system, as far as keeping the settings, is a little confusing for kids. Kids playing on PC, though, I imagine would be able to figure it out, usually. I should have been able to figure it out. But then what is really confusing for everybody is just the deceptive way that DLC for Lego Batman 3 in particular is available for purchase. Generally speaking, what you would do now, so many years later, is have only a Game of the Year edition available for purchase, not have any of the separate DLC available for sale. These are all DC characters that you're getting skins from, so it's not like it's a case where if you buy this one DLC, some portion of that sales goes to a different company or anything like that. That might make more sense in other kinds of games. But they have a season pass, but the season pass includes several things that are also available individually for sale, and then they have individual things that are not included in the season pass. They have things that are just all over the place. It's like every kind of DLC you could possibly think of in a kid's game. It's just ridiculous. But I don't want to get into too much of a rant on it, so let's just play this Arrow level, which I assume is Green Arrow.
I've been stranded on an island with only one goal: survive. Survive, and one day use a proper toilet again. I must fulfill my father's dying wish to use the list of names he left me and bring down those who are poisoning my city. To do this, I must become someone else. I must become something else. Something green and pointy. And arrowy. So far I've learned how to give a bowl of water a good slapping, but my training is by no means complete. Like, what if I'm attacked by a bowl of soup? Not watery soup. That really thick pea soup. Whole different fighting style to water. Anyway, I'm not alone on this island. I've met another survivor, Slade Wilson. He's okay. He just likes to take his top off a little too much and hits me in the face a lot. But he assures me it's for my own good. He's agreed to train me to fight and to survive. That day, Slade and I decided to visit a nearby campsite that belonged to our not-so-friendly neighbors. We would need to trust each other if our plan was to succeed. For
So
members of the continuity police out there, sometimes I like to imagine myself back on the island wearing my Arrow costume, okay?
So part of the problem with Green Arrow is that he is basically just another rich guy who has skill and no real ability, which is not a big problem. But then you run into a larger problem with the DC universe in that there is basically no consistency as far as what gets promoted and pushed and what doesn't. So, Green Arrow had a CW TV show that went for a very long time. I don't think too many people watched it. In general, I don't think too many people watch any of the CW shows as much as they would like them to be watched. At a certain point, as someone who didn't watch the Green Arrow CW TV show, it felt like it very much had become a situation where they weren't even really focusing on the Green Arrow as a character anyways, and they were focusing in on secondary characters who had been added, secondary characters who in themselves were DC superheroes, but obviously they couldn't get a full show themselves, or they didn't get a full show themselves. I did watch pretty much all of The Flash, which is a character with superheroes, which is another CW show. And I would say the problem with The Flash definitely became that after a few seasons, you really didn't have anything. They really weren't focusing on the Flash as a character. Instead, they were focusing on a lot of secondary characters. Yeah, it doesn't even really feel like Green Arrow has the ability at the moment to fire an arrow. You definitely have a problem with both Marvel and DC characters being originally created a very long time ago, and thus they are very cartoony and silly. And so where the Batman Arkham Asylum series tried to modernize Batman and the Batman characters, they usually don't succeed too well with that, and I would say that would have been the case a lot for the Arkham Asylum characters too. Even Batman is really a very difficult character to contextualize in a modern time frame and make it feel realistic instead of it just
My experiences on the island changed me. Sometimes they even changed me into a small plastic version of myself. Slade had changed too, but he always had a plan to survive.
I think this character Slade, I don't even recognize him, so maybe he becomes the bad guy or what. But I don't know what the Lego DC universe is doing with this, because I wouldn't I wouldn't recommend Green Arrow to kids. Like, one of the most famous Green Arrow stories is like the Green Arrow being an alcoholic and beating his wife or hitting his wife. I think it was a Green Arrow story also where one of his girlfriends gets murdered and shoved in a refrigerator for very bad writing reasons. Apparently, so he can't dig in the ground. It's not like there's that many digging like characters.
I hardly ever climbed waterfalls at home.
And it's not like since this game they've managed to make a whole lot of like kid-friendly direct-to-TV or direct-to-Netflix style movies around Green Arrow.
Danger was all around the island.
I imagine
you always had to watch your
in the
step.
past 4 or 5 years there's probably been maybe 2 direct-to-Netflix style cartoon shows that had the Green Arrow in it. Yeah, I don't know if you're supposed to just rush through this or what. Seems like they're putting a little too many mines in your way if the plan was to blow up all of the mines in your way so you could wander past. And it seems like there's not really a safe procedure here where you can find the middle ground. So yeah, that felt awkward. And I guess if in the last recording we were still playing at 720p and we still were having some slight awkwardness with breakable objects not really moving where they should go, then that really is probably just more of a statement as to like a lack of polish on the game in general. Yeah, I think what you say is, I think that I would assume this, and I think it's true, that DC, much more than Marvel, underappreciated its kids lineup. So much so that all they really have is Teen Titans Go, and things like that. What is this? Prompt. This bow can only be picked up by the arrow. Press Y to switch characters. Oh yeah, Batmite. There's little hints. That is also something that does not really appear in any of the future
Slade had hidden it for safekeeping, but today
future Lego
we needed
games.
to put it to good use. I remember thinking at the time that my archery had greatly improved, as well as wondering how Slade had been able to construct such an elaborate shooting gallery.
There's no real challenge or trick here where you would potentially try and fire individually without locking on. I don't think there's even a way to do that.
We were ready to take on the bad guys, but it turned out they were ready too.
Or any kind of like trick to hit several in a row. And I would say you can have Green Arrow not have his bow ability fairly early in a long-running series of levels, but it kind of falls apart when you are talking about a short DLC level. You just really don't have time for that. Okay. So I found a silver thing so you can shoot an explosive thing. Some of the gimmicks in this game definitely stand out as being gimmicks from previous Lego games, and since it has been so incredibly long since I last played a Lego game, it really just seems silly for that to even be included as a concept. But yeah, I guess DC needs to probably just have way more kid-friendly content. What's funny is DC does kind of own the Looney Tunes, and I think they also own Scooby-Doo, but they kind of don't do anything as far as any consistent releases of those series either.
And how may I be of assistance?
Slade can sneak past the guard tower by using a clever disguise. Press B to use it. Okay, good to know. So now he's walking incredibly slow.
It was going to be tricky to get past unless we thought of something. Luckily, Slade was extremely skilled when it came to not being seen.
But yeah, I think at its core, DC needs to probably de-age a lot of characters and seek that out as their audience. I think DC is mistaken to only make mature rated and adult focused movies, Batman movies and others. I think they need to find a second lineup that they could release.
Twisted surprise birthday party without any presents, cake, or ice cream.
Yeah. Even the DC Netflix type movies tend to be too edgy and too dark. Um, and I think that probably does just highlight a lack of focus and a lack of good direction from the people in charge of DC. I just don't think they know what they're doing. Which, in all fairness, being handed the Star Wars universe, which I think needs to at least be 50% attractive to kids as much as adults. Disney really didn't do a great job with that either, with the episode 7 and 8 and 9. So we're looking for unicorns basically to be in charge of these franchises, or I might suggest something fairly controversial here. Had, say, DC content, which is well past a point in my mind where it should be public domain. Had Batman been public domain at this point, there would have been some enterprising new company to try and make kid-friendly and adult-friendly, adult-focused Batman stories, and there would just be all kinds of Batman stories all over the place. Same is kind of true with Star Wars. If this art, which has long since been really abandoned by the people who originally created those characters, at this point George Lucas selling Lucasfilms pretty much implies he was done with Star Wars. And Stan Lee and the other people who made the Batman DC characters have all long since either died or retired. They're definitely not working on it anymore. Stan Lee has died. So, yeah. I think society probably would be better suited if you could just write your own, make your own fan fiction style movie and put it out in theaters, and then there would be more markets and more fandoms serviced instead of it being in the hands of any single person, because it really is kind of a silly task to say we've got to find some person who is smart enough to be in charge of Star Wars that they can make it appeal to all audiences. We have to find this one person who's smart enough to run oh, I guess I need to put together these zippers to run DC to make it appeal to all audiences. That's a cute thing, gimmick. And the little motion when you scan something and find something helps you focus your eyes towards that thing. This guy does not want to die. What you would have imagined.
A stockpile of weapons that, for us, would make getting off the island next to impossible. We had to destroy them while we had the chance.
Is that these Lego games would have created a lot more Lego movies. And it kind of did. There was the Lego movie and the Lego movie 2 that are not really set around Telltale style games, and there are a few direct to video style Lego minifig shows that also kind of have a different feel because you don't have the grindiness and the gameplay mechanics that you would expect from a Lego game in a movie, obviously. So you may see minifigures running around doing things, but they're not going to be breaking up things to get studs to put things together. Guess I'm supposed to just shoot this to blow up the weapons. And then I imagine that's just going to be the end of this level.
So there you have it. Another harrowing experience back on the island that made me into who I am today, into what I've become today.
In most Batman stories, Batman
Felicity
did,
and Diggle worry when I flash back for too long. Remember,
and they don't even tell you
keep
who
your arms
Felicity
straight
and Diggle are.
and let go.
Batman also went to like an Asian type place and learned karate, and that's how you get Bruce Wayne capable of doing all those things. And they sometimes talk about it, but it's kind of a pointless thing to talk about also. It's weird that there are Adam Wests in peril, considering how you over the main game have already collected all the Adam West in peril in the main story, so they're just giving you more collectibles that aren't even counted when you hit the start menu, and then we have this load scene. So like you can see in the little right hand corner there, interesting how it paused there to save, 30 out of 30 Adam West's in peril, and yet we know there are other DLC levels. Well, that's not going to be the case. So now we just jump back into free play and run through it.
My name is Oliver
And
Queen.
we'll go in
I've
and
been
try and
stranded on
skip
an island with only
everything. Yeah. What you probably would want to do is, as crazy as it might seem, is have a show called The Batman Files that has a different episode around a different DC character. Here's Swamp Thing, for instance. And you try and make a kid-friendly, cartoony version of each character, and you throw them out as a concept. And from those concepts, here we have Zebra Batman, which is quite the joke. One issue appearance, Batman. And then you just have Batman going through like Bat files in his back computer around certain people and being the narrator. That way you always have the sense of Batman, who is obviously the way over-focused character for the DC universe. Usually it's about half of the entire launches include a Batman each month. So you can keep his strong characterization, his strong personality there, but you don't have to focus solely on him. Let's see if this guy can open combination lock here. 1141, which I don't have a clue what that number might represent, if it represents anything. We can just fly here with, I believe this is Red Tornado. We may have some struggle still to get some of these things. Notice in free play mode, this is just already up. But eventually, even if you were to start around the idea of having new characters introduced and experimenting and seeing what kind of reaction you get from it, much in the same way that the Marvel Universe movies introduced characters and mostly succeeded in establishing interesting characters that did get at least a couple other movies. There also were definitely some characters that kind of fell by the wayside. It's no coincidence that we didn't have any standalone extra Hulk movie for quite a while until they had a really good story. And yeah, sadly, like Black Widow movie, when it finally did come out, didn't really get well received. And since Disney owns all of Marvel, now they are putting a few of these other characters in TV series more than they are showing up in movies. And Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. also, I think, kind of attacked that quite a bit too, where the Inhumans weren't really ever given any movie time, but they were able to use them on a couple different ABC TV shows. And then there were also other characters that I guess they just didn't think they would ever use that showed up on that. I have no idea how this is supposed to be broken. Like, it does seem awkwardly out there. Did I switch this weapon to anything else? Lex Luthor apparently can only boost himself up. Maybe you just crawl down here. Alright, we need something that can dig, I guess. Okay, so that's weird that there's two very different dig through the ground features in this game. Let's see, if we were to just kind of look at characters. Yeah, there's just a lot of characters. Yeah, that don't really work, whereas like a Green Lantern TV series or movie series should work, but didn't. You can't just have an entire game or entire side stories focused around the bad guys of Batman, his rogues gallery. But yeah, there's definitely some characters here that you could try something different with. You could certainly have a Batgirl.
I'm just cursed with natural beauty.
Interesting. I didn't know they had lines of dialogue where if they got bored. I guess that's just Batgirl's lines of dialogue. Yeah, there's just a ton of characters, but most of these are people Batman specifically is focused. Kevin Smith, much like Conan O'Brien, probably was never a good idea to be allowed to be a character in the video game. It seems like they kind of didn't care about the longevity on this. Wonder Woman, Wonder Girl. Yeah, some of those characters definitely are getting their own little CW TV shows. The Justice Society of America, I think.
I'm not just some garden variety superhero. I am, but that's beside the point.
I haven't seen anything try to do anything with the Ace the Bat Hound dog. Actually, there is kind of a incredibly small number of characters here that are mostly unconnected. And then you have like Suicide Squad characters here that these are from the first Suicide Squad movie that really didn't succeed that well. And now we just, as of this recording, had James Gunn's The Suicide Squad movie, and then there was a Birds of Prey movie, I believe, before that. Power Girl, another character. Like, they don't even really have a good Superman series happening. They really are fairly hopeless as far as DC. It's just being able to make content that appeals. There are almost certainly thousands of other characters who showed up once in some DC comic. So you could certainly bring in new characters. I don't know if that would really change much. Because at the end of the day, you're still they're gonna be very unrecognizable characters. They want me to play as Lex Luthor with his peace sucking up ability. I forgot about this whole vacuum thing. So I need 30 pieces of Lego. Which means we have to find 30 pieces of Lego. What would that be? I didn't see 30. Yeah, where would you even find them? See if we can just respawn. I guess we should trigger. Man, this is slow. This part first, and then we'll run around and see if we can find the Lego pieces. Yeah, they haven't done anything with the DC like magic part of the universe. Zatanna and characters like that. They show up occasionally, but that's about it. So, like, John Constantine shows up in Legends of Tomorrow, which that CW TV show was all about introducing lesser known DC characters, and even at that it hasn't done any kind of great amount of success as far as getting a viewership. The problem is, because they all end up on the CW, because I think Warner Brothers has significant shares in the CW, then they don't ever get seen. Whereas Disney, and maybe this won't be a problem for much longer, as I think Disney is about to acquire Warner Brothers, had a over-the-air channel of ABC to put things like the Marvel Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. So if DC characters start showing up on ABC, they might get slightly more coverage and broader recognition, although at this point I don't know how many people are really watching over-the-air TV, but they might be the exact same people that are still going to movies too, so that might be a good idea. Okay, I have 23 pieces, 25 pieces. Looking around, trying to make sure. Well, we kind of know what triggers the next thing, so we can run around a little bit more. Let's break this and see if there's anything over here. I guess we're looking for crates. So, yeah, there are some crates back there. Yeah. I think one of the major complaints you could certainly say, or problems that comic books in general have, whether you're talking Marvel or DC, is that they just have a fear of losing their remaining audience, which arguably I think at this point they've probably gotten over that fear and are more than willing to lose their dwindling audience. It's like restaurants that say, well, we can't change our menu because our few remaining customers love our menu, but then you have so few customers you can't actually maintain your business anyways. I think personally I can say that when I heard about the new 52, that was the thing that made me want to try and read DC comics, whereas Marvel pretty much has claimed it's never rebooted things, but then Marvel has had significant numbers of crises which basically reboot things, and they certainly have undone things they didn't like. So I think it is disingenuous for them to claim they've never undone any storyline content or retconned anything. It kind of feels like there would be just this whole other path back there for a whole nother section of content. We may need to run all the way back. But the problem with the new 52 as someone who read nearly half of every single comic series that came out under the banner of New 52, is that by the time I had even read nearly half of it in trade paperback form, which was really about the only way you could even slightly afford to read comics, like, it is a nightmare to try and read comics on a monthly release. That their entire sales model is antithetical to the way I would enjoy reading anything, and I think anybody who enjoys reading anything even slightly probably agrees with that sentimentality. Alright, so you had to come back here. Like, very few people want to read 16 pages of a comic book that barely have 3 pages of actual dialogue. But if you get a nice trade paperback, then you're getting 6 months worth of individual issues, usually combined. And with those 6 months of issues combined, then you have a fairly decent experience, but not a great experience, because you still need about 4 or 5 trade paperbacks usually to read a full series in the DC way of releasing content, because they will usually, after about 4 or 5 trade paperbacks, at that point they'll completely reboot the whole series, and reboots are the nightmare there. Yeah. Honestly, I think the comics in newspapers have a better release schedule idea, because at least there you have like comics that air every Sunday.
So there you have it.
There's
Another
a lot less
harrowing
expected,
back on the island
but they
that
go
made me
on
into who I
forever.
am today, into what I've become today. Now I gotta go. Felicity and Diggle worry when I flash back for too long. Remember, keep your arms straight.
Let's go ahead and
let
skip
go.
this. I suppose what they should do, and I say this as if I know anything, I've been saying this as if I know anything, but yeah, Cartoon Network, as far as Teen Titans go, I think succeeded way better than anything else. I think Batman the Animated Series certainly succeeded way better than anything else, and that was, I think, originally on Fox Saturdays as a cartoon. So what you would want to see is a Cartoon Network-like channel specifically dedicated to DC things, and maybe that would be a streaming service nowadays, or you would just have a lot of that show up on Netflix or something like that. But yeah, if I was DC, I would definitely say, don't even try to sell comics to kids, just sell cartoons to kids. And we'll get them to read comics once they become preteens and teenagers. Or you go the full video game route. I would say, compared to most DC comics, playing a Lego Batman game is probably better an experience. Let's just check this before we end this episode. There really isn't a lot to say about these levels, certainly. Though, like, they are just nothing. They are just added things. And the only reason I'm even bothering to do this is because I'm trying to get 100% of all the achievements on the Lego games, because of the fact that Steam highlights games that you've got 100% of the achievements on. But that's kind of grindy, to say the least, and kind of OCD to try and get every achievement just because of that. Anyways, just for bragging's sake, really. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.